There's a shift happening, quiet but unmistakable. While the world is still screaming for attention, posting every thought, broadcasting every move, a different kind of person is emerging. They're not loud, they're not performing, they're not proving anything to anyone. They're just working, in silence, in focus, in the kind of discipline that doesn't need witnesses. And if you're one of them, you already know. 2026 isn't about being seen. It's about becoming, because something changed. Maybe it was 2025, the year you talked too much, shared too much, compared too much, the year you watched others and wondered why you weren't further along, the year you scattered your energy trying to keep up with people who were running someone else's race. And at some point, you stopped. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You realized that greatness doesn't need a spotlight, that real growth happens in the moments no one sees, that the work you do in private is what creates the results people see in public. So you made a decision, a quiet, powerful decision. This year, I'm going silent. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you have work to do. And that work requires something most people don't have anymore: focus. See, the world is designed to distract you, to pull your attention in 1,000 directions, to convince you that if you're not visible, you're not valuable, that if you're not sharing, you're not succeeding, that if you're not talking, you're not growing. But people who focus on self know better. They know that talking about your goals dilutes them, that announcing your plans invites opinions you didn't ask for, that sharing your progress opens the door to judgment, comparison, and doubt. So they stay silent, not out of secrecy, but out of protection, because they're protecting their energy, their peace, their vision. And they understand something most people don't. Your personal life is personal. Your journey is yours. And the moment you make it public, it stops being fully yours. It becomes a performance, a narrative others get to comment on, a story shaped by outside voices instead of inner truth. And people who focus on self refuse to live that way. They've learned that silence is power. Not the power of secrecy, but the power of sovereignty. The power to move without explaining, to grow without permission, to change without having to justify why. And that power is rare, because most people need validation at every step. They need to announce their goals to feel committed. They need to share their progress to feel motivated. They need to broadcast their wins to feel successful. But people who stay silent have found a different fuel: internal motivation. The kind that doesn't depend on likes, comments, or applause. The kind that comes from knowing you're showing up for yourself, not an audience. And that shift from external to internal is what separates those who talk from those who do. Because here's the truth: winners speak less, not because they're hiding, but because they're building. And building requires energy. Energy that gets wasted when you spend it explaining, defending, or performing. So they conserve it, they redirect it, they pour it into the work that matters. And while everyone else is talking about what they're going to do, they're already doing it, quietly, consistently, without fanfare. And that consistency compounds, because the world rewards action, not announcements. It rewards discipline, not declarations. It rewards the person who shows up every single day, even when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching. Because that's where real transformation happens, not on the stage, but in the shadows, in the early mornings, in the late nights, in the unglamorous, repetitive work that no one sees. And people who focus on self in 2026 have made peace with that. They don't need the world to witness their effort. They don't need validation to keep going. They don't need applause to know they're on the right path. They just know. And that knowing is unshakable, because it's not based on external feedback, it's based on internal alignment. The alignment that comes from living in integrity with your own values, from doing what you said you'd do even when it's hard, from showing up for yourself the way you wish others would show up for you. And that alignment creates a kind of confidence most people never experience. Not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, unshakable kind. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind that just is. And if you felt that shift in yourself,
If you've noticed that you're talking less, sharing less, performing less, don't second guess it. That's not you withdrawing, that's you evolving. Because you're learning to guard what matters, your peace, your energy, your focus, and you're learning that the world doesn't need to know everything you're doing. They'll see the results, they'll see the transformation, they'll see the person you're becoming. But the process, that's yours. And keeping it yours is what makes it powerful. Because when you stop sharing your journey, you stop diluting it, you stop letting other people's opinions shape it, you stop giving away the energy you need to complete it, and you start moving with a clarity most people never find. Now, let's talk about why this is so hard. Because staying silent in a noisy world feels counterintuitive. It feels like you're missing out, like you're being left behind, like if you're not visible, you don't matter. But that's the trap. Visibility is not the same as value. Noise is not the same as progress. And being seen is not the same as being successful. In fact, often they're opposites. Because the more you perform, the less you produce. The more you talk, the less you do. The more you share, the less you focus. And people who've realized this are choosing differently in 2026. They're choosing focus over followers, discipline over displays, results over recognition. And that choice is creating a new kind of person. Someone who doesn't need to announce their comeback. Someone who doesn't need to broadcast their setbacks. Someone who just keeps moving, quietly, relentlessly, toward the person they're meant to become. And that person, that version of you who's focused, silent, and unstoppable, that's who you're building in 2026. Not for applause, not for validation, but because you finally learned something most people never do. Your old self doesn't have to understand your new self. Your old friends don't have to support your new path. Your old life doesn't have to make sense of your new choices. You're not here to be recognized. You're here to be transformed. And transformation is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask for permission. It just happens. In the repetition, in the discipline, in the moments when you choose yourself over comfort.
And the people who are doing this work right now, they're not posting about it. They're not talking about it. They're not seeking validation for it. They're just showing up day after day in silence, in focus, in the kind of commitment that doesn't need witnesses. And that's what makes them unstoppable. Because they've learned that minor setbacks are just setups for major comebacks. That the moments when you feel invisible are often the moments when you're growing the most. That the silence you're living in now is preparing you for the sound of success later, but only if you stay in it. Only if you resist the urge to break your silence for validation. Only if you keep your focus on the work, not the world. Only if you protect your energy like it's the most valuable thing you have. Because it is. And in 2026, that's what separates those who make it from those who don't. Not talent, not luck, not connections. Just focus and the willingness to stay silent while you build. Now here's what's beautiful about this. The people who are doing this work don't need to explain it. They don't need to convince anyone. They don't need to defend their choices. They don't need to justify their silence. They just trust the process. And that trust is what carries them through the moments when it feels like nothing's happening, when progress is invisible, when growth is slow, when the world is celebrating people who are louder, flashier, more visible. They just keep going. Because they know something most people don't. Greatness is built in the dark. In the moments no one sees. In the work no one applauds. In the discipline no one witnesses. And one day, the world will see the result. But by then, you won't need them to. Because you'll have already become someone your old self wouldn't recognize. Someone stronger, someone quieter, someone more focused. Someone who learned that the most powerful thing you can do is disappear into your work and emerge as a completely different person. And that's what 2026 is about. Not announcing your goals, but achieving them. Not talking about your comeback, but living it. Not seeking validation, but building something so undeniable that validation becomes irrelevant. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've stopped posting. You've stopped explaining. You've stopped seeking approval. and you've started moving in silence, in focus, in the kind of discipline that doesn't need to be seen to be real. And that's not loneliness, that's power. Because you've learned that the world doesn't reward noise, it rewards results. And results come from focus. Focus comes from silence, and silence comes from the decision to stop performing and start becoming. So if 2025 was the year you talked too much, compared too much, scattered your energy too much, let 2026 be the year you take it all back. Take back your energy, take back your focus, take back your peace, and use it to build something that doesn't need explanation. Because the best revenge is becoming someone no one expected, and the best way to do that is in silence. So stay focused, stay silent, stay committed. Not because you're hiding, but because you're building. And when you're ready, when the work is done, when the transformation is complete, you won't need to announce it. People will just see it. And they'll wonder how you did it, but you won't tell them. Because by then, you will have already learned the most powerful lesson of all. That greatness doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs discipline. And discipline is built in the moments no one sees. So let them talk, let them wonder, let them compare. You've got work to do. And in 2026, that work is done in silence. If you're choosing silence and focus this year, you're not alone in that choice. There are others walking this path too, quietly, intentionally, without needing to announce it. And maybe that's exactly the kind of space worth staying in. If any of this resonated, I'd love to know which part. Not for validation, just because sometimes it helps to know that what you're feeling has been felt before. And if you're someone who values this kind of depth, this kind of quiet truth, you might find more of it here. Not every week, not with noise, but when there's something worth saying. Consider staying, not because you should, but because you might want to.